try to cover basically three different areas that I was asked to address. One would be making sure that we don't lose students, shouldn't fall between the cracks. Other will be not dropping the ball on students. In other words, everybody, we can maximize every student for something. And then not taking advantage of every contact, okay? Which is different, I'll go into it. So number one, when somebody contacts us through the website, we just started that we ask them what's the best way how you would like us to communicate. Some work better by phone, some work better by email, and others by WhatsApp. Those are the three that we ask them. And they'll choose which one they prefer. Because until now we figured everyone's one or the other, but now when they write what they prefer, then that's the way that my staff and I will work with them. So that's number one. Number two, when we do get in touch with them, and we do have that system that we set up appointments that they can choose a time when they're available. So eventually we do try to get them on the phone. And what we do is, so I have perhaps a benefit that not everybody here has, because many of you are focused on one or two trips that you'd like to send on. But when I speak to them, I give them more options. So in a way, they feel like they're being given an option of trips. And although I pretty much know where I want to go with them, but the fact that I'll give them options will make them feel like they're choosing it and like they're owning it. You know, like asking a kid, do you want to go to sleep now or in 5 minutes, right? So as long as you give them the option, they'll do what you ask them. So, b'chlal, I feel that's a maila that, again, that they feel like they are choosing the trip. You're not telling them, oh, you got to go with this trip because, you know. So what do I ask them? I'll ask them basically, I'll say, are you interested in a trip with more touring? Because usually they've been on a birthright, right? That's assumed they've been on a birthright trip. I'll say, would be interested in a trip which is more touring or more about exploring your spiritual side. Not going to say, I used to use the word educational. I don't know, that doesn't work with everybody. So exploring your spiritual side. So I know what their answer is going to, no, I say this, that, or a combination of both. And 80% will say a combination of both, right? So then I say, oh great, so I got the perfect trip for you. Which is basically what we all want, right? You know, those that are going to say only my spiritual side, gotta make sure they're Jewish. But usually they'll say a combination of both. Okay. Now once I give them a few options of what they can check out, and now starts the nudging process. Okay. Now there's two sides to the nudging process. There's nudging the student and nudging the trip provider, right? Heinberg. You know me, right? So you can be more persistent, obviously, with the trip provider, but making sure he received the application. Well, you tell the student, let me know as soon as you apply to which trip or trips you apply to. You have to follow up with the trip provider to make sure they did receive it and that they're following up. Because this is a very important thing. When they came to your website, you're probably not the only website they found. So they may have checked a few, and they may have applied to a few. So the sooner you work with them, and sometimes it's within minutes, and they're shocked that we try to get back to them already. And it's not automated, it's real. People will get back to them. And so time is very important. The sooner you can get back to them, the sooner you start the process, the better. Now, sometimes they become silent. They're just not responding. And that's pashut, I think, because they get 100 messages every 5 minutes, and they may have forgotten, they plan to get back to you, and so on, whatever it is. So about a day or two later, if they don't respond, I won't. You know, some people will say, you know, things. I'll say, you probably didn't receive this email. It may have gone to your spam. You know, make sure they're right. So in other words, you just make them feel like they're what's the word, excuse that they have a good, in other words, you don't want to make them feel guilty, but like, oh, you probably didn't receive it, you know, let me know what's doing. So you do those nudging like every 2 or 3 days. If that doesn't help, sometimes you start a new again, this is in case of emails, that you start a new thread. You don't go with the old thread. You might sometimes may have ended up in a spam for some reason, and so on. Now, if the trip provider did not accept them on a trip, find out why. There may be a reason that, and McCarvin just feel, okay, at the end of the day, forget about it. But there may be a reason why this trip may not be for this student, and a different trip may be for them. It might be time, it might be their level of whatever. It could be many reasons why you may feel that they're from Canada and my trip doesn't accept from Canada. It could be many things, and then you might be just dropping it to find out, have them tell you. Whatever it is, whatever it might be, possibly there's another trip that can work for them. So on that note, it's kedai to be aware of the many different trips that are out there. Sometimes they'll be open to a Poland trip, although they signed up for an Israel trip. Sometimes they'll be open for a Sinai or a Heritage, although they signed up for a Poland trip. You have to be able to maximize the contact. And if it doesn't, they might say, oh, I can't go for 2 weeks, I'm only available for 1 week. So we don't have really Israel trips for 1 week, but we do have Heritage retreats for 1 week, and we have Poland trips. There are different options that we can give them, even if if that trip that they applied for won't work for some reason. Okay, this is just, which I feel I have to say. Some people say, I don't feel that they're into growth, and that's why I'm not accepting them. I think that if you're in Kiruv, I don't accept that. I don't accept that. I think every Yid is into growth. You just have to know how to tap into it. You have to take off the klipos and find a way that you're going to connect to them. It's not they're not into growth. If they're Jewish, I believe there is a way to reach them, and it may not be this, it might be something else, but don't write somebody off because of some question you asked them, and they said, I'm not into that. Because, if you want to, I just had somebody that 2 years ago, she contacted me. I asked her, she was on a trip, and the trip provider said she was totally not interested, the most not interested in the trip. And I went ahead and I signed her up for a program, even though he said that. And from there she went to a level 2, from a level 2 she went to 2 seminaries, and last week she got engaged to Yeshiva Bacha. So Lav Davka, the one, because she wasn't successful, she was partying, whatever the case was, doesn't mean that she doesn't have potential to grow. So I think that's important to have in mind.
2 more minutes.
Yeah.
2 more minutes?
Oh, 2 more minutes, okay. In terms of maximizing the online or any contact that comes in touch with you, everyone knows somebody, right? So if a trip did work or doesn't work, you can always tell them at the end of the conversation, once they see that you're interested in helping them and so on, do you know any other Jewish friends, brothers, sisters, somebody who would be interested? And they'll say, of course. Every Jewish person will know another Jewish person. Can you refer them, right? That's on a small level. Then you can say, do you have Facebook? Sure. Do you mind posting our website on your Facebook? There are ways, little things, how you can get each one. I had last week a woman, 54 years old, from no man's land, New Mexico, contact me. Saying, what am I going to do with her? But for sure Jewish, mother's Jewish. And I said, do you have daughters? Do you have children? And she said, yeah, 3 children. So 2 of her daughters are signing up for trips this summer. So each person, you have to be able to, there's somebody who they know or something that you can get them to recruit another person. You don't have to think, even one more person. And of course, I have to plug this, that I think on every website that you have, it's kedai to put a link to trips to Israel. It's kedai. Because if they won't work with your trip, they might find a different trip that may work with them. So I think that's it for now.
Thank you, Asher. Yes, Keith.
I just want to add a quick endorsement for trips to Israel. It happens to be working here. I'm sure all of you get this, and I get this all the time. It's like, I'm Jewish. I know somebody, my cousin's cousin, or somebody who, we all have our target markets, but we get contacted by random people about different Jewish opportunities. At any time, I have somebody that just I don't have the time to necessarily deal with these people, who are not part of our target. or not with one of our campuses or affiliated with us in some way, I have him as a resource to send them to him, send him an email, or send them to the website, tell them to check it out, because there's so many opportunities out there, and there's so much what you can do with it. So, yeah, big endorsement.
I just want to mention that when I started getting involved in the educational side of things, so David had just come back from Eretz Israel, and the first call I made to learn about all these trips was to Rafal Seif. It was in Eretz Israel. And it was amazing because Rafal began Israel trips, did you say 9 or 10 years ago?
I didn't start at Bentzi Schefter's.
Okay. He's been involved for a long time, but besides having a tremendous breadth of experience with people from around the world, because he's dealing with trips from all over, I was taken by our first conversation because he was bothered that when anytime there's a problem on a trip, people don't call him and he can take care of it. And from the most mundane to who knows what, like just little things. But I was amazed that someone was involved in so many trips and guiding, and at the same time is really wants to be able to fix and deal and to make sure every trip works. So it was very impressive, and I've learned a lot from these trips to start, and so it's great to have a follow year, and also to address the question of security concerns that students have, shed light on that issue in terms of recruitment.
Okay, so I'm going to start with a show of hands, please. If you've had a student approach you about security on this coming season's trip. Okay, so we're fair to say that this affects everybody in the room. So there are a few things that I want to help you, I want to give you in your toolbox. First of all, how we're going to be helping you, and also psychologically, how you're going to prepare yourself, and then how you're going to help answer to them. First of all, I think it's important to identify the source of the concern. Okay, so is it, when you hear what you're hearing, is it the student talking, or is it their mother or their parent or their grandmother or boyfriend talking? Okay, I think it's the first very important thing for you to understand the student, because the way that you're going to address what you're going to be saying to them has to be in the headspace of where that concern is coming from. Because, for instance, if the student is not concerned at all, they're just parroting what they're hearing from their mother, you have to get their mother to feel safe and secure, and then you're done. So the things that might talk to the mother or the parent are different things that might talk to a student. So we should remember that, I don't need to tell you, but these students are engaged in life-threatening situations, if not weekly, if not daily, weekly. So it's not like looking for a high or traumatic experience or roller coaster or substance or something that will take them to the edge is not necessarily something that is in their headspace as a problem. So that's first of all. So identifying, if we're talking about something that is a parent or a person of authority, where the student or the participant feels fine, it's just that they have to answer to someone. So then contact the provider, contact me, and we'll tell you exactly what security is being provided on the trip. Usually that's enough. Usually just for them to understand that you are connected with a licensed provider who can, in a second, answer you. This is our security firm. This is what we do. This is how often we have security. This is in which situations we have security, which situations. Even if it doesn't, it's almost not about the details. It's just that they see that you are responsible in that way and connected with someone in a position of authority. Usually that's enough. If it's someone that they themselves are really concerned, so there are a bunch of different things that you need to understand, that you need to convey, but it has to be conveyed in a very non-condescending way. I'm going to say it right now in a condescending way, don't say it this way. Jerusalem is actually one of the most safest, if not the safest city in the world, statistically. It's just how it is. There's extremely low pickpocketing, mugging, murders. It's just ridiculously low compared to what's going on. So, in essence, there is no threat, or it's very minimal compared to where they live right now. That's one thing that if you internalize, then you have to think of a way to give it over to them, again, non-condescendingly. Another thing is, statistically, it's unfortunate to say this, but statistically, if you look at the people that have been targeted in the knife or the stabbing intifada, basically, except for that, for the one boy from Sharon, Massachusetts, Ezra Cohn, there hasn't been one tourist that has been attacked. Now, there's one more?
Yeah, an American soldier.
Yeah, the American soldier.
The non-Jew from
On the beach in Tel Aviv.
Yeah.
Captain Jaffa, the West Point
Okay.
guy.
I have a theory about him, but whatever. What?
And I could buy that.
I'm not asking them to buy anything. I'm telling you.
Goes to anybody then. Just that.
But that's not true. That's just
They're
simply
looking
not
for
true.
Hebrew-speaking people.
No, they're looking from people. That's the Metzias. I can't tell you I interviewed Arabs.
They're looking for.
But this is not, that's not going to help you in.
Wait, but according to that, we should be worried at this time.
That's right, you should be. You should be. And so we did send out a waiver, which was also a security update before last season, where we told, we had a list of things like don't be on your cell phone, be aware, know what's going on, and these are the things that if you sit down with a student and say, listen, these are the things, security has been upgraded, we have extra, we are providing, Olami is paying for extra security for right now in Jerusalem. That means a guard 24, well, not when you're in the hotel because the hotel has its own security, but basically whenever you're out, then there is extra security that we have not paid for in the past that we are paying for now. That in and of itself usually, but at the same time, for groups that say, yeah, but we need our free time, so that's not going to work. In other words, if you're concerned and your participants are concerned about walking the streets, then yeah, you're going to have to cancel your free time. We're not providing, and I would suggest that it's not even a good investment for you to provide for an individual guard every place and every bar and every club that a student wants to go to. If there are security concerns, then things have to change. And whether that means canceling free time completely or free time only with the group to a certain place and then everyone comes back, which might in and of itself be a good idea anyways. But there are things that have changed, and I'll be happy to share that. I can say it now, but I think it's more important, more helpful if I did it by email. So if you have those concerns, please send it to me. I'll send you our waiver. I'll send you our securities and what we've added. Yeah.
Have you found that at a certain point, like I've dealt with a lot of parents because, a lot of times the rabbis will ask me to speak to this person's parent or that person's parent because I'm the one who's sort of behind the scenes helping with the trip and registration and whatnot. So it's more for someone, outside of them that it could be in that role. So, and I find that at a certain point that parents are just very, very emotional. That like no matter how intellectual statistics, even trying to be extremely polite and saying, well, maybe look at this or maybe look at that or think about it like that. They're just so emotional about it that there's no way to get rid of them. Or
that happens. You don't have. It's very important to identify early on: is this an excuse or is this a question? Because if it's an excuse,
yeah.
it's very likely that you're not going to be able to get past it, and you're not going to be able to convince someone that if they're using it as an excuse. If it's a question and there's an answer, so then we'll help get you the answer.
We did the same thing for Poland. We had two parents who wouldn't send to Poland because they're concerned about ISIS in Poland.
Listen, it's on the other hand, it is scary on the one hand. On the other hand, once you get there, there's a very different feel to what it looks like on the news. So those are your tools. Your tools are to sit down with them, tell them that we have added security, and give you numbers, names and numbers of, you should use students, use past students. Identify a student that was so scared, didn't want to go, eventually went, and say, listen, she went with me last week or last month or last season, and she's like, once you get there, it's nothing. Because let them speak to their peers, because their peers are going to be a lot more powerful than anything you're going to be able to say. Questions?
I was just going to say from my own experience this year and in past years, I'm finding, first of all, I'm getting more questions this year than I have probably since 2006. We haven't actually canceled them. But I'm finding that my young professionals and grad students are more receptive as long as they're hearing that we're carefully considering what the situation is,
Exactly.
and monitoring it, and that we're seriously providing security. That seems to be satisfying them. I'm grateful to hear that Omi's helping to support.
Right, so I just want to also, one of the things I would send out, when I'll send out anyways, that any of you that are using a provider, so the providers that we connect with, whether it's Go Inspire, Jewish Junior, Israel Experience, or Tzlalim, all of them have a connection to something called Moked Teva. Moked Teva is the Army's update for where you're allowed to go and what you're allowed to do. And obviously, whether it was bombs and Sderot before this started or other things, we've changed itineraries on the fly based on where you're allowed to go and where you're not allowed to go. So
Just like Birthright.
just like Birthright. Birthright, by the way, just to put it out there, Birthright is not having extra security this season. I spoke to them last week, and they do not feel that it's necessary anymore. The extra security that they did have was what they went from one armed guard on the bus to 2, and now they're moving it back down to 1.
They're still having one. We don't have any.
What?
They're still having one.
They didn't say that.
We have it.
Oh.
In Jerusalem we have it.
Oh, we just one.
Yeah.
Yeah, we have.
And usually when we tour also we have.
Yeah.
When you tour.
Now we'll also always have one. Just like Birthright.
The tour guide always has a concealed weapon, don't worry.
Anyway, thank you very much for following. Thank you very much. David's going to.
Thank you guys. Just before dinner, I just wanted to share with you guys some one quick development that we're working on in Olami Land, which is really exciting. I just wanted to kind of share it with you, and then if you have any questions about it, either over dinner or over the next couple of weeks, hopefully there's going to be a